All right, so yes, so this is what the input device is for. It's for all input devices are either to input information or data into the computer or to communicate with the computer. All right, some of the first input devices include the keyboard and mouses. That's where it really started from. Then you talk about the scanner, and that's what they put the paper on to see if they can digitize that image. Then, and you have also the ADF. It's still also a scanner, but the difference with the ADF is that it automatically feeds documents. So it is automatic document feeder. Then we have the joystick and gamepad, and that's for those. Joystick is not only for games, but it's also to communicate for input directions into the computer, as in, and you have the gamepad, like those little controllers that you use for those persons who are old enough to remember Atari and those game pads. We talk about the KVM switch, and I mentioned that KVM stands for keyboard, video, and monitor, and mouse. And then you have what it does is that you have one box, and it has different multiple outputs of keyboard, video, and mouse. And you have the input, one input, which comes from the computer. And what it does, you can switch between multiple computers so that you can use one keyboard and mouse to communicate with multiple keyboards. So you just switch to whichever computer you want, the same keyboard and the same mouse will be used to input the information. And that's the KVM switch is for. When you go into a server room, or even any room where you have multiple computers, one person's operating multiple computers and don't want to be moving from keyboard to keyboard, because what will happen, you can make all mistakes. And you don't want to have 10 keyboards for 10 computers, and you don't want to have 10 monitors for 10 computers. So you have one monitor and one keyboard and one mouse, and you use a KVM switch. You switch between the computers. So you just press switch 1 and you go to that computer, switch 2 to that computer. So you end up using the same keyboard and the same mouse and the same monitor. All right? So that's the original input devices. New input devices, those are devices that are not supersede and not, but it all, well, you could say it possible make some of the older input devices obsolete. But the mouse and the keyboard and the monitor will not go. You understand? But if you can think, if you can tell me, no, we have a method of having all your input into one single thing where you can type, you can move your mouse, or you can move on the screen, and you can see your screen at the same time. That is an input device that does everything one go. Can anybody give me an idea, or can anybody share that information? Which device is that? And I can give you a hint for those who are probably wondering what it is, and it sounds very complex and complicated. But if you think of your smartphone, do you use a keyboard?
No. You're
Do
speaking
you
of a
use a
tablet?
mouse? I'm not speaking of a tablet. A tablet is a device. I'm talking
What
that
about
input.
sorry, what about the type of computer that they're making now? The ones that have the touch screen now.
So we are talking about touch screen, basically. The touch screen, it culminates, it has all the inputs of it. It uses the keyboard and it using the mouse right there. So you don't need a keyboard and a mouse when you have a touch screen. So if you think about it, when I bring up your smart device, your tablet or your smartphone, you don't use a keyboard and neither do you use a mouse, but you can type and you can move across the screen. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, because you
All
have
Yes.
the
right.
finger for scroll.
Right. So we're thinking now that touch screen is an input device, and it comprises of two. It basically can be used for two purposes: your keyboard and your mouse. All right. So if for those persons who do their the smart casting from the phone to the TV. You can also type what you want to type on the TV from your phone, which is an input device. You get what I'm saying? So those persons might have
Yes.
Netflix on their phone, and they cast it onto their their TV, and your smart TV or whatever TV. Once you have the application to cast it on the TV, then your smartphone becomes the input device. Then we have the stylus. All right, and the stylus is also your mouse and your keyboard. So can you use it to type? So you have the stylus is a type of digitizer that allows a designer or artist to create artwork by using a pencil-like tool. But we also use the stylus to do our signatures, to move on our smart devices, to type on it also. You understand? So that's an input device also. All right. Then you have the magnetic strip reader, a device that reads information magnetically encoded on the back of the plastic card. So you will have a card. One of those cards look like credit card or security cards. It has a black strip on it, a magnetic strip, and when you put it inside magnetic strip reader, it reads the information that is encoded into that magnetic strip and present it in whatever format that needs to be presented. For instance, it could be a switch where it either allows somebody inside somewhere open a door or whatever, you understand, or allow a seal to be made. Then we have the barcode scanner, a device that reads the information contained in the barcodes affixed to the products. And we all know what a barcode look like, right? Everybody should know. Class, do you all know what a barcode look like?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have barcode scanner and we know where they are. We see them in the stores, in the supermarkets and so forth, where they scan the items that you are purchasing, and it brings up the price and the description also of the item that you are purchasing onto the screen. So those are new input devices. All right, other new input devices, you're talking about digital camera that capture digital images and videos, webcams, signature pad, and smart card reader. All right. Smart card reader. All right, let's talk about the digital camera for those who we understand the digital camera class, right? Where you capture images and videos and you can output it onto a computer, onto a screen, and that's why it is an input device. The webcam does the same. All right. If I turn on my webcam now, I'm inputting my image into this computer and you'll be able to see it displayed on your screen. All right. Then you have the signature pad, a device that electronically captures a person's signature. All right. So when we go to MoneyGram, as I mentioned it, or Western Union, or some of those places, some banks where you have to sign because nothing is more on the electronic side. You have a stylus that you use to sign onto the signature pad, and the other person, because you're inputting your signature there, the person on the other end will accept that information and save it into their database. So that's how it is an input device. Smart card reader. And that is a device your computer uses to authenticate the user. All right, so you will, even same place, some persons who work at the call centers and hotels, and it is used for security purposes, and even on the banking cards, the credit cards. A smart card may be the size of a credit card and with an embedded microprocessor. It doesn't have to be, you understand, but it can. You understand? Embedded microprocessor that is typically under a gold contact pad on one side of the card. And then you have the microphone that we're talking to. All right, and that's inputting our sound, our voice. All right, so most recent, we have NFC. Did we talk about NFC last week, class? We did. The newest input devices include NFC devices and terminals, facial recognition scanners, fingerprint scanners, voice recognition scanners, and virtual reality headsets. Back in the days when we talk about somebody doing a fingerprint scan, it sounded like it was far away. And we talk about facial recognition, even retina scan, right? Those stuff sound like they were far-fetched into the future, but they are right here with us now and has been for a while. All right, near field communication is it's also a communication method with your phones, where some phones come with that ability or that feature, and also some printers where you just need to get as close as possible to the printer with your device, with your other near field device, and you will be able to communicate to that device and print. Even some speakers, some wireless speakers are also NFC devices. So you will have your phone that is near field, and you put it to that device, and you will start, the music will start to play once you set it up and you make the communication. All right. Then we talk about voice recognition scanners. All right, and those devices identify a user based on a unique voice. You know, as they say, all our voices have different pitch. We speak at different pitch. I'm trying to remember what is the correct word other than pitched, but we have that wherein it is unique to us unless somebody capture it on a recorder and can play it back. All right, and you have virtual reality headset, and it's used with computer games. Most of you guys probably have a experience of this. All right, and not only it's in headset, but you go to some of the games, especially when you go to some games room like Cooperative, you might see some of the games there. When you're there, it's a virtual reality setup. The difference is that in a virtual reality headset, you put it over your head, over your eye, and you look into it, and you get the feeling that it is real, as if you are a part of the entire scene, whatever is happening. That's how it works. All right. And for those who have been to the embassy, know what the fingerprint scanner is, and some workplaces also does it. All right. Any questions before we move on to input devices? All right.
Wait, yes. There was a device that they use to scan paper, and it projects inside the computer. What that device fall under?
It's a scanner.
It's a type of paper scanner.
Yeah,
Like
man,
it
it's a
scan
scanner. It's a scanner. It's a scanner.
Okay.
So we talked about that earlier in the original input device is a scanner.
Okay.
Where you put paper on it, it scans, and then it digitizes the image and make it into a soft copy onto your computer.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, so we're looking at a VR headset. This guy here with him hands all out, like him trying to touch something, but him basically having a vision of this whatever scene he's in, you know. All right, so an output device. Can someone tell me what you can? Go ahead, class.
A
Repeat the
device that
question.
Sorry?
Yeah, repeat the question. You break up a while ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just saying, can you go ahead? Can someone please, explain what you consider an output device or output devices to be?
is it devices that gives out information from a computer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
converts it into like a readable form that we, the end user, can understand.
correct. And even if it is not readable form, but once it outputs information, someone be able to
Yeah.
understand it or maybe decipher it. Then
So it
yes,
even
output.
can even output through sound to, yeah,
Exactly.
can explain to you.
Right.
So it decodes information from the binary to any physical device.
Right. So you say it takes an input and display it. The input can be whether be binary or electrical, it can be sound, it can be electrical, it can be whatever input it takes in, and then it outputs it. You understand? But the computer deals with binary, so I understand why you use the term binary. You understand? All right, so everybody here have a good understanding of what an output device is. And examples of output devices, as we can see on the screen, include monitors, projectors, VR headsets, speakers, printers, and headphones. Or you can even say earphones. All right. So there are the examples, and we know how the printer works. You information inputted into the computer, and you want to display it on a piece of paper or any hard copy, then you use a printer. And then it doesn't have to be a paper, because it can be a 3D printer wherein you input information or data into the computer. It makes it into information, prints out that information in whatever format that it should be displayed in, or the result should be in. So it could be a 3D printer, and it could be a photocopier. All right. Or it could be one of those plotter that plots on either metal or wood, or even plastic or paper, as long as you're getting an output. All right. Monitors and projectors are one of the three types of technology that we are used to more commonly as output devices. All right. So, and we have the technology that we know of currently now is we have the LCD technology, which is liquid crystal display. We have the light emitting diode technology, LED, and we have the organic LED, LED, another output. Those are the technologies for the one that are in use right now as most popular. Sorry, before that we have the CRT. Can anybody tell me what CRT stands for? Anybody remember those monitors that were the big back monitors, we call them? Anybody remember those? Yannick, go ahead. Cathode ray tube.
Yeah.
CRT, CRT monitors and CRT TVs, right? They are not being used anymore. You understand? They are not being used anymore. So most of what we look on now as TVs and monitors, they're either LCD or LED, whichever version of the LED. All right. Most video projectors that are the one that we use to project, like when you go to Sting or some fest or some event where they have the event is also being projected onto a screen. So we're talking about those projectors. All right. And you can also project what is playing on your cable if you have one of those cable boxes that can project, that can output DVD. The projector can take it in through not DVD, HDMI port. So you can project video cable like that also. Take for instance, you might go to JMMB and you'll see they have the TV channels that are being projected on a screen right there in front of the wall. Yes, so that's a projector that is taking information. It's an input coming into the projector from the cable system, and maybe the cable box has a HDMI port, out port, and it plugs into the HDMI in port on the projector. So that can work. You have different projectors. You have the DLP, which stands for digital light processing. This is one of the most popular type of projector. All right. And then you have different projectors have different numbers of lumens. That's how you kind of, like in television or phone cameras, we tend to look at the quality by the resolution. In cameras, we talk about the pixel. When we talk about screens, we talk about resolution. So the higher the resolution, the more compact the images, and not only more compact, the more detailed the image is, and it seems even more real, right? Like you can touch it. And then you have, so the projectors now, they have, their numbers are measured in lumens, you understand? And that has to do with the level of brightness. Lumens has to do with the level of brightness. So you have some projector that can be brighter from a longer distance than some, and that's how it is measured. So some projector, you have to keep it close for it to look real compact and give you a good resolution. So a higher resolution projector will have higher lumens, no, the number, so you can stay far and get a higher resolution of projecting the image. All right, let's move. Are you guys hearing me clearly, by the way?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, so talk about VR and the AR headset. So virtual reality uses computer technology to create a simulated three-dimensional environment. All right, and a VR headset completely encases the upper portion of the user's face and not allowing any ambient light from their surroundings. So that gentleman you see in the picture to your right hand side, first picture is that right hand side, that's a VR headset. All right, so when he has that on his face, he's basically blocked out from his real environment. He's now in the environment or the scene of what is taking place on that headset. All right, and then he feel encompassed, feel as if he's a part of it. All right. Then you have augmented reality, and it uses a similar technology, but superimposes images and audio over the real world in real time. All right, and you'll find that in augmented reality, you find that in I'll give you some example, wherein somebody might be, they have a video of, say, Paris, right? And then they will have another video or image that is superimposed over the location. The location is real and everything, but let it have a different feel and look as if, they would say, all right, picture this in 20 years from now, and they make it look like what it would be 20 years from now. Or this is what it could have been look like. So they superimpose other image where say it looked like 40 years ago and so forth. So that is what you call augmented reality. All right, so superimposes image and audio over the real world in real time. AR can provide users with immediate access to information about their real surroundings. An AR headset also usually does not close off ambient light to the user. So you basically, you are not closed off from the light that is in your environment. So you can see what is happening real life in front of you. It's just that the reality, the augmented reality, is just superimpose whatever video, whatever image, whatever audio that is happening right there and then. Another output device. Printers. Printers are output devices that create hard copies of files. All right? And hard copy, as I explained before, can be either paper, and it could be plastic form, or created from a 3D, or as I say, it could be metal, and it could be wood, based on what kind of printer is being used. Different type of printers. We have the inkjet, impact, thermal, laser, and 3D printer. So the inkjet, that ink is in like a reservoir, and then it is jetted out onto the paper. I think it's by a pump. All right, and then you have the impact. So you have inkjet would be like the bubble, the inkjet printers that HP, those nowadays DexJet printers that we have. Those are what I call inkjet printers. Then you have the impact printers. Impact printers is where the information is, as the word states, impact. It places it on the image, on the paper, or whatever the hard copy is going to be. It places on it via impact. So I can give an example where you can find impact printers. When you go to the tax office, all right, when you go to the tax office and you see, you pay for your, what you call it, any receipt you get most time at the tax office is printed by an inkjet printer. So it has one of those impact printing heads, and it has a ribbon, and as soon as I send the information to the printer, that printer head start to turn the head and impacting on the paper like a typewriter, pam, 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 pam. And it's that's where you get your information on the printer. Then you have laser printer. Laser printer, you will see those also at the tax office, but hardly that you will get any except, let me tell you where the laser printer prints. When you get your license, that is a laser printer. So it's printed on a particular material. Well, laser printer can print on any material, but for your license, they already have the pre-printed form or paper there, and they will put that in the laser printer and it will print on it, and when it comes out, then they do the lamination. But yes, what prints your license is a laser printer. Or when you get some letters from the bank, those are laser printing stuff. And you have 3D printers. 3D printers are what prints 3D stuff, you know, like ball, like even phone cases and those stuff. All right. So when you talk about thermal printer, I think a part of a thermal printer. Thermal printer is those printers that really don't use any ink. So for instance, when you go to some of those, when you go to, let me tell you one place where you'll see that, like Progressive, they use these thermal printers, and some of those Chinese people also. So you see that piece of printer, that piece of receipt paper that you get, there's no ink there really. So it uses a special receipt paper that it uses. And through thermal, through heat, it prints on it, on that paper. All right, so it cannot be printed on any other paper and comes out like that. It has to come with that special paper. All printers are either wired or wireless connection. And wireless can either be near field or Bluetooth or regular wireless. All right. All printers require printing materials such as ink, toner, and liquid, plastic, etc. Whatever material is required of it. Those are some of the stuff. Printers use a driver to communicate with the OS. So the driver is a software, by the way. All right. So each printer uses a software to communicate with the computer, and the computer also to communicate with the printer. So you will find that if the printer is out of paper, the computer will tell you that printer is out of paper, and most times it will tell you that it's out of ink or something. So that software is what interacts with the computer and with the printer, and it is called a driver. Speakers and headphone. Speakers are a type of auditory output device. And we know what that means. We know what they are, where you send out audio from your input, from the output device, input device, into your speaker. All right. So most computers and mobile devices have audio support either integrated into the motherboard or on an adapter card. Then you have the headphones, earbuds and earphones. All right, these are found in headset. And they are all auditory output devices. They do the same thing as a speaker. All right, so they can either be wireless or wired. All right. So when we talk about wireless, we talk about Bluetooth and so forth. As long as there's no wire, no string connecting to it, to the output device, to the medium that is sending out the information. All right, so we complete input devices and output devices. We are going to move now to computer disassembly. All right. Once we complete this chapter, we're going to get back in and we're going to do some questions and check your understanding. So I hope you guys were reading. All right. All right. So we will do this video. As a matter of fact, let me do this video now. Right. Let us get to there and do this video. Just a moment. I'm going to find that video. Okay. Share. Can I see my screen?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Okay, all right, just give me a moment. All right, I need to, just a moment. I need to share. Just give me a second. All right. Here is it. So we're also going to get, we're also going to get assignment where you guys have to do your assignment research on a particular. We're going to do group works. We're going to do group work where you'll be placed in group. I mean, the numbers are small. I'm hoping that the class will grow, but let's see what it will be like by next class. I need to optimize. Just give me a second, class. So I guess this is already optimized. I don't need to optimize. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Tell me if you are seeing everything and hearing everything clearly.
It's kind of low though.
Yeah, it's a bit low.
Are you seeing the video clearly?
Yes, visually we're good, but it's a bit low.
It's a bit low. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, let me see if I can get. All right, our volume is at 1%, at 100%, and this here is at 100%. I'm not sure why it's low. Just give me a second. Yeah, everything is at 1%, so 100%. All right, let's try again. Start from the beginning.
Hello, everyone. Imagine building a computer with your bare hands. Don't have to do that. Here outside and inside our computer. Start here with ES.
The sound stopped.
Yeah, not hearing.
The sound stopped now.
Yeah, we can't hear anything. Can you use the CC for us to read it if we can't even hear it?
You can't hear it still?
Can also connect directly.
Okay, yes, we
it's
hear
clear
you
now.
a little.
Ourselves correctly with our workspace. Now, as we continue, sometimes you may find a computer that has not been touched or cleaned in what seems like a decade. For situations like this, we can use a cleaning tool such as a compressed air can. When you get into a computer, you find out that a lot of computers can be completely disgusting inside. Canned air like this can help us clean out the CPU heatsink, CPU fan, the GPU heatsink and fan, and doing so allows us to keep our devices running cool and without errors. So many problems with computers is because of heat issues. Canned and compressed air should always be in your toolkit. Let's continue with screwdrivers and magnetic tips. Commonly, the magnet will be weak enough to not affect the sensitive devices within your computer, but they are usually strong enough to assist in not losing and/or retrieving screws. If you've ever dropped a screw into your computer case, you'll understand this frustrating game retrieval. Now, some kits may come with a device like this, an extraction tool. Besides retrieving lost screws, we should talk about the most common type of screws in use. The most common type of screws are Phillips heads. The Phillips head screwdriver is what we should have in our toolkit for most of our work. Now, some computers might use Torx or flathead screws, so we should have those screwdrivers in our kit as well. While working on a computer, we'll eventually verify network connectivity. We should have some basic network connectivity verification tools in our kit to verify cabling, cable rating, and functionality. This cable tester can save you from experiencing a variety of headaches. If a cable is bad, we should have tools like these crimpers over here that allow us to both cut and terminate cable. An organized storage case works wonders while working both inside and outside a computer case. This holds true when you're removing screws from a variety of different adapter cards, drives, motherboard setups, and more. Keeping things organized using cases allows us to save a lot of headaches from occurring. Keeping organized is the top tool of the IT professional. Get comfortable using the tools in your toolkit. Build out your own toolkit now, but keep in mind, your kit will continue to grow and become customized based on your evolving skills as you become an IT professional.
Okay. All right.
Hello, everyone.
I'm sorry, did everyone hear that clearly? All right, so that is just a video describing the toolkit. Describing the toolkit, the tools that are a part of the toolkit and the usage. All right, we'll get comfortable with the tools as we move further into the course. All right, when I get face to face, then we'll understand much more. All right, so we're gonna do this when we're done. We're gonna do this now. All right. I'm trying to find an option where I optimize this video for sharing, but I can't. So you might not be hearing it very loud, but I hope you're hearing it enough. I'm gonna begin the video.
Hello, everyone. Can you believe it? We're here to disassemble a perfectly good and working computer. But that's how we learn. That's how we're going to practice becoming the best IT professional. Let's get started on disassembly. Again, I'm going to power off the computer. Then I'm going to disconnect the power cable from the power system. Commonly, we like to depress the power button and hold it down a little bit longer. That'll get rid of any excess power on the system. Back of the computer. Now we can remove all these video and audio cables, mice, and keyboard. Unplug my network cable button. Network cable, mouse, keyboard. And remove the audio cable, and then even my video connector. Computer is completely unplugged, and now we're going to lay it on its side, and we're going to get to the internals. Move the mouse and keyboard to make it easy. When they get the computer on its side, I can remove the screw on the back. You either do this by hand or use the screwdriver if you need. We can slide the case cover. We'll start again on the inside. With my case opened up and laying on its side, we can start with our hard drive. My solid state hard drive is mounted right here. We're going to zoom in on that, and we're going to disassemble. First, what we're going to do is take off the SATA power connector, which is right here. Safely pull that straight back and disconnect. Then we have the SATA data connector, which I can also pull and disconnect. At this time, I can now unscrew that hard drive, and we can pull it right out of there. I'll take that corresponding screwdriver with the correct fit, and we'll remove these screws. I'm holding it on. The first screw removed, fold it up so it doesn't drop. Hard drive is out. Screw is removed. So at this point, we're going to continue on and we're going to do the optical disk drive. The optical disk drive is up here at the top of my case. So we'll zoom in on that next. And let's continue on and remove this optical drive. Now, this is the best view we're going to get in this tight space. We've got the power supply here. We've got the optical drive right next to it. So what we're going to do here is remove the SATA power connector from our optical drive, which is this one. Grab it with my fingers right there, and pop it out. And right behind that, we have the smaller SATA data connector. So I'm going to remove that as well. Just grabbing it, pull it straight out as well. So the power and the data is now disconnected from this SATA optical disk drive. We've got a couple things to get it out though. Number one is I've got two screws, which you can see one here and one here, that we need to remove. So we'll remove those two screws. As we're removing these two screws, I want you to think about something. The power supply is right behind this optical drive.
Everybody is hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
I'm not hearing nothing.
This optical drive.
Okay, go back.
All right, come back now.
Can you hear it? Okay, good. All right. Just say if you can't hear it. I'm going to do something. If you can't hear it, let me know.
Not hearing right now.
Just from the motherboard. Up here at the top, you can see I have a 24 pin main power supply connected to my motherboard. Got that little lever right there. We're going to pull that back, pull this thing straight up off the motherboard. Keep my hand in there, put my finger on that lever, and then I'm going to grab it and pull it straight up. Got it. There you go, with the lever and all. See that clip on there. Not done yet though, because we take a closer look inside this piece. We see that there's this other ATX CPU power connector. You may not have this on the board. It really does depend on your computer. This one also has a little lever. This lever you can see right down over here. Let's zoom in on that, and we'll get this one removed as well. We're zoomed in, you can see it back. It's a 4-pin right there, and we see that it's got that little clip on it as well. So I'm going to reach my hand in there and try not to obstruct the camera as best as possible. Not easy, because there's a very small piece to work on. And I'm going to grab that thing, and I'm going to put my thumb on that lever and pull straight up. Got it. That's the 4-pin ATX CPU power connector, because there's extra power to the board for our components. So we're good on the power disconnects. We're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to take out some adapter cards and finish off our disassembly. We've got one adapter card here, and that's our video card. And we're going to remove this thing. In order to remove it, what I need to do is take off this. What is this? It's going to be our mounting bracket. I remove this mounting bracket to allow us to actually lift off and pull out this bracket start. So I'll take my screwdriver, and we're going to grab that screw on that mounting bracket. And we're going to unscrew it like so. With that being unscrewed, I can go ahead and I can just lift this on, and this secures any cards I have so they're not going to chip or be removed. So this time I'm going to reach into that computer case, and my graphics card has a little lever on the bottom. This lever is very difficult to see, so we're going to do some camera. So here's a better angle. We've got a diagonal view of this graphics card. And if we look closely down there, try not to block the light and get in a small space. There's a little black lever right here. And if I try to pull up on the card right now, right here, pull up, it's not going anywhere. What I have to do is pull this lever out to the left, towards the yellow line there, and I can lift straight up on the card, and it will come out of the PCI slot that I have. So I reach in there, you can see it, I'll pull that lever right there, pull it towards me, I can lift the card straight up. Now it pops out. You can see where the lever was actually holding on to, right down there, over here. That's something handy. Your card won't fall out of this line. So we'll pull that card out, it's gone. So we'll continue onwards now. I'm going to work on that power supply. We may have already removed our power supply connectors off the motherboard, but it's time to remove the power supply from the case. In order to do this, I'm going to tilt my power supply up in the case, and we're going to take a look at a couple screws. So we've got screws of screw number 1, screw number 2, 3, and screw number 4. And we need to take these out in order to get access to slide this power supply out of the case. And I think you can tell which way it's going to slide out. See how the metal of the case is? It's not going towards me. It's going to slide out into the case. So I'm going into the case. Let's do this. Take my screwdriver and it's unscrewed. This is that moment where you stop and you make sure it's not going to fall literally into the case at a vertical angle. My power supply here actually has a lever, and the lever I'll show you in a little bit is down below, and that's keeping the power supply locked in. So even now it's not shifting, but there's one screw left. Now that's not going to be common for every single computer case, so keep in mind, for you it might be a good time to hold on to the power supply as you take out your last screw. I can do the same, but you've already seen the other ones in video. The last screw is out. Take a look. My power supply is not moving. It's still locked. That's because of another angle of the video I'm going to show you. If you look closely, down here at the bottom corner of my power supply, right up here, that's a locking lever. That is preventing my power supply from moving into the case. All I have to do, take my hand, I'm going to deep press with my thumb on that lever. You don't move. Push down, and the case is going to go to right out, and there it goes. So we're going to remove the rest of the connectors, and we've got these front panel connectors inside of here. I've got one for audio off the front panel. I've got one for USB. I've got another one for their front panel power, as well as going to be a power LED, reset switch, even a speaker for BIOS. So all we need to do is just take on these and lightly pull them straight up. And there goes our audio. There goes our USB. And lastly, our front panel connectors for our power button, reset button, speaker in there. Next, we need to get the memory out, which is going to be our RAM, our random access memory, which are two memory chips here. You see them right here and right here. So we're going to zoom in on those. We're going to take a look at how to remove those from our computer case. Now that we've located and we've zoomed in on our two RAM modules, we're going to release the locking tabs on both of the memory modules on the motherboard, and that's on both sides. After that, we can gently lift each of these out of the motherboard slots, and we can place them on our anti-static mat for safety. I'll go ahead and I'll pop the one locking lever, pull it down, go on the other side of the small case, and I can lift that RAM module out and put it on our mat. And do the same thing for the second module, hold on the locking levers, and lift that card right out. Awesome. At this time, we're finished with our disassembly. There's always more that we could take out, but due to the fragile nature of our remaining items, I've got a CPU with a CPU heatsink and fan, and I've got the motherboard itself with the case fans. This completes the disassembly of our computer tower. Hello, everyone. Can you believe it? We're here.
We saw the video.
Yeah.
Did we get a visual understanding of what it is like to disassemble a computer, or the approach that we should take for those persons who have never disassembled a computer as yet? Do you think that information was enough clear? I mean, I know that for those who have never done it would want hands-on, but I just want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it was clear enough. Just practice would help us understand better and grasp the everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
And
It
what
was sufficient.
was sufficient? And
Yeah.
one thing also is for you to know that if you notice when he was disassembling, when it's taken, he did a lot of it in different steps and phases, you know. And the reason for that, you might have noticed that for you to get to some component in the PC, you have to remove some first, right? So you normally, when you are disassembling your PC, you will want to remove the one that you can access easily, and the one that is more difficult to access or pose a little problem accessing, then you leave that until you clear the path to get to it. All right. And when we get to the point where we are going to disassemble a computer, which probably is going to be next class, maybe it will be next week, Thursday. I'm going to plan it for next week, Thursday, where we'll do the disassembling, or probably, yeah, we'll do it next week, Thursday. We all meet together face to face and do the disassembling of the computer. Then you will all have a good and a first-hand feel of what it is like to disassemble a PC, know what to do, and you will also at that time learn to reassemble the computer. All right. So this video is just what you call it, is just to give you a taste, a feel, and to see what inside the computer look like and what the steps and how you go about disassembling the PC. All right, so we're definitely going to meet in class to disassemble the PC. All right.
Never seen you use like the grounding mats.
The grounding mats, it was already on the grounding mats.
Okay,
Yeah,
the white thing that would say that was it.
Yeah, because in the beginning, I'm gonna see if I can show you. It was already on the grounding mat. So it says these are the steps right here, which I'm gonna bring up on screen. Let me share on screen. Okay, so it speaks of what is inside your toolkit, what is important, and that's it. And there's a list of stuff that you want to have in your arsenal when you are working in your computer shop or your repair shop. Are you working on someone's computer? Those are the stuff that you want to have. You know, anti-static wrist strap and the mat. You want to have your compressed air, or you want to have your blower or vacuum. So, and then you have the Phillips screwdriver, Torx screwdriver, cable tester, and crimpers. Some of those are optional, but in your arsenal, in your toolkit, you definitely want to have these items. All right, so when you're doing the disassemble, these are the steps that you want to follow. All right, so, and these are the steps that was followed by the narrator in the video. So first, you want to power off and disconnect the power supply, and we know the reason for that. You don't want to damage yourself, and you don't want to damage the components of the computer also. Okay, you don't want to be working in the computer with live electricity. So the first step is to power off your computer, and then you disconnect the power supply, meaning you plug the power cable from the power supply of the computer. Second step, you disconnect the mouse and the keyboard. And so you take off those two stuff, and then you're going to disconnect the video adapter cable, the VGA cable, if one is connected. And then you will have the computer, the control unit by itself to work with. So you're going to remove the screws from the case, or the case screws, and you remove the SATA power cable and data cable. Those are on the hard drive, and they are also on the optical drive. When I say optical drive, class, what am I talking?
The DVD thing.
Right,
CD-ROM
we're
and DVD.
talking about the DVD, CD-ROM drive, or the Blu-ray, whatever drive, but the optical drive, that's what I refers to. All right, you remove the hard drive, and you remove the optical drive, because you're taking off the power and the data cables from those. Those two component of the computer, the hard drive and the optical drive, it must have two cables on it. One, the data cable, and it must have the power cable. All right. Remove the adapter card, whatever adapter card that is there, you need to remove it. And then you remove the power supply. All right. You can remove the power supply first if it is impeding the other components that you want to remove. All right. So these are steps that you want to follow. But like I remember, I told you earlier, if some things are being impeded, then you remove the impedance. All right. Or the impediment. So then you remove the front panel connectors, and then you remove the RAM. When I say RAM, what am I talking about?
Random access.
Right, we're talking about the memory modules. All right, so we will do this lab next week, Thursday in class, or we probably could do it next week, Tuesday. I'm thinking that we should do it next week, Tuesday. All right, Thursday is too far. No, but Tuesday is no movement day, so it'll have to be Thursday.
You have a
So
time
next week,
frame?
Yeah, I was thinking of the time as well. See, not the curfew, I think is what, 7?
we can meet and do it at 4. Or if not, we can put it off for another date, all right? But we need to do the disassemble and assembly, reassembly.
All right.
All right.
I'll be home Thursday, so I will have the time still.
So we can discuss it. All right. All right. So chapter 1, we completed chapter 1, and we talk about how to keep the personal computer components safe, and we talk about the features and functions of the computer components, and we disassemble. We look at the video at how we disassemble a computer. All right, we're gonna go back to our NetAcad, and we're gonna see if we can get some check your understanding. Wanna see if we can get some check your understanding. All right, so here we go. Can I see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna go back and do some check your understanding. We're gonna use about 20 minutes to do that. All right. And then at 7 o'clock, we'll take a 10-minute break. All right. All right, so we're gonna go back and do some of these quizzes. All right. I don't think any more quizzes after this. So the instruction, can you see my screen? Good, clearly?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Instruction, match the connector type to its image. All right. And I guess you guys, we have done this last week and I told you to read ahead and read over. So let us do it. All right. How many females in the class? We have Tenley and we have Karine. Any other females? I don't think so.
Alicia.
Alicia. Oh, Alicia is here. E-L-L-E-C-A. All right. 1, 2, 3 female against all these guys. All right. So it's gonna be ladies against gentlemen. Are we okay with that?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
All right. I believe in you, ladies. I believe in you. All right. So looking at it, the first connector, which is HDMI, just count the number from top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tell me which number should I match this with. HDMI port.
4.
4. Okay, that's one for male. DVI.
1.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to divide it up different. SATA is SATA. The guy says SATA, but it's really SATA. All right.
5.
Okay. What about USB?
3.
Come on, ladies, I don't hear anything from you. Come on.
Them erase me to it, man.
You have to raise them, man. All right. All right. So we can check the result. We know it is correct. All right. We're going to go ahead and do some more. All right. So that one was warm up. All right. I won't count that as any prize. That was warm up. All right. So let's do this one. Check your understanding about input devices. What was the first type of input device?
Mouse and keyboard.
Okay, so we're gonna check them. Keyboard, mouse, anything else? Anything else? Because we know so we're not right, you know. No, we only can do one.
Oh, 1.
All right, so it's not mouse and keyboard.
I'm
You have to
gonna
tell me
go with
which one is
keyboard.
it. You're gonna go with keyboard? All right,
Yeah.
finally, I hear a female voice. All right, a company is building a new secure data center and wants to limit access to authorized personnel. What would be the best type of input device to use to limit
Magstrip reader.
access? Magnetic reader. You sure? I'm gonna say I don't. I will go with biometric. All right, I'll go with biometric device. All right, I could be wrong. All right. So we're gonna select that one. Someone says biometric scan device. Biometric is like a facial scanner, fingerprint, voice recognition, retina scanner. Those are biometrics. All right. Barcode scanner, you'd have to have, yes, you can use a barcode scanner if you have a ID card with a barcode on it. And magstripe reader is to read the what we call it, those card with the magnetic stripe on it. All right, so we'll check and see who is wrong or who is right. Barcode scanners are used as self-checkout counters in large department store. True or false?
True.
True.
True, sir.
Damn, ladies, man, I have two ladies on the board, two answer for ladies on the board. Which input functions are available on most current smartphones? Choose all that apply. Start to tell me.
Touch screen.
Keyboard, touchpad, fingerprint reader, microphone. I would say all.
All of them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's check and see where we go wrong. Aha.
Really?
Oh my.
All right, so
See.
we don't have to reset. So we're talking about input devices, right? And it said which functions are on most current smartphones. So you don't have
Oh,
keyboard on
keyboard
it.
is not.
Keyboard.
Yeah, keyboard.
You have a fingerprint reader, yes.
Yeah.
You have a near field for pay. And you have a microphone.
Microphone, yes.
All right. You have not successfully. They still have one more there. Any other?
The near field is not
Near
supposed
field.
to be in there.
Near field tap to pay is not an input device. Anybody else have any other suggestion? Let's just check. You have not. All right, so we're going to look at it. See,
The
we have
fingerprint reader.
The mic.
fingerprint reader. Don't you have a fingerprint reader on your smartphone?
Yes, sir. We have a
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how come?
Okay.
Maybe because of the N, maybe at the NS in the NFC. Like only
NFC
one that
board
might be wrong.
untested.
So what about keyboard? What about keyboard?
Think
No.
All
keyboard
right,
and,
let me
and
help you guys
touch
out. I'm gonna take out all
keyboard.
of them and you start again. All right. So let us
Alright.
go through it. Is microphone an input?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Is fingerprint reader an input?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is touchpad an input? Do we have a touchpad and a keyboard or a touch screen?
Touch screen.
Touch
Screen.
screen.
It
Touch
does it
screen.
matter? Is keyboard an input? All
Yes.
right, let's check here. So we're gonna
I
put
say we should go with
I-
keyboard.
on the smartphones. We don't have keyboard on the smart devices. Smartphone,
It's a
do we?
touchpad.
A touchpad.
But
Touchpad.
more the touchpad then.
But then again, touchpad depend on computer.
So we should have one.
Something alright.
Yeah, unless
Not
this
right?
outdated. Most current smartphones in 2021 have already. So
Then I'm gonna give it touchpad
Now-
to the phone, sir, because
Yes,
touchpad
yeah.
is computer.
So no one
Check out
touchpad.
A touch screen, we have touchpad depend on computer, sir.
so that means if you don't
Definitely
select all
right.
of them, it might be wrong.
So
Maybe if you don't
so
select none of
which
them.
other one you want to check? So I shouldn't do this.
So,
Yeah. Okay, so touch.
I shouldn't click on that.
Touchpad.
So touchpad. The person that says touchpad is on the computer is correct.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
we're not giving you an hint and say, do we have touchpad or touch screen? But touch screen is different from touchpad. All right. And NFC is also an input device. All right. Tap to pay, and it didn't tell you tap to pay. All right. And your fingerprint reader, definitely most smartphone comes with a fingerprint to unlock it. The microphone, you're talking to the phone. All right. And definitely it comes with a keyboard. The keyboard comes up, but you use a touchpad to interact with the keyboard. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
So we move to the next. What are output devices? I'll get to the next. Check your understanding. Okay. Check your understanding. Right? Identify visual and auditory devices, device characteristic. All right. So we are going to drag the visual or auditory output device to the cell next to the appropriate characteristic. So whichever one over here matches over here, we're going to put it here. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? All right, so let's do this. LED is an LCD display that uses LED backlighting. LED has lower power consumption than standard LCD backlighting. So the panel can be thinner, lighter, brighter, and have better contrast. Which one is that?
Monitors.
Projectors.
I want a projector.
Projector.
Monitor.
Sure.
All right,
Mon-
so let us take the final answer. What is it?
Projectors.
Monitor.
All right, so we're going to stick with monitor. I should have just given you the wrong one, but it's monitor. All right, DLP stands for digital light processing. Digital light processing uses a spinning color wheel with an array of mirrors. Each mirror corresponds to a pixel and reflects light towards or away from the optic, creating an image of up to 1024 shades of gray. The color wheel then adds the color data to complete the image.
Projector.
Projector.
All right. Good going. They may have variety of sensors, including motion, external visual positioning, cameras, motion tracking, accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer. Resolution and refresh rates vary. What are those?
VR headsets.
Aha.
VR headsets.
Man, this lady is on a ball because she's correct. All right, so they're talking about the gyroscope, the accelerometer. That have to do with movement, and that have to do with your positioning and so forth. And then you have these usually do not close off ambient light to users, allowing them to see their
AR
real
headset.
life. Okay. These have hardware that must be maintained, and most also have software in the form of drivers that must be kept up to date. Most computers and mobile devices have audio support, either integrated into motherboard or on
Speakers.
These may be wired or wireless.
Headsets.
Option.
Phones. Yes.
Let's see if we're correct. All right, so let's go here. Check our understanding the technical toolkit. Let's see everybody all sharp on it now. The extraction tool from 1 to top, remember from top to bottom is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we start at the top at 1.
Number 2.
Extraction tool.
Yes.
Okay. Cable tester.
5.
Aha. Anti-static wristband.
1.
Crimper.
3.
4.
Oh, sorry. 4.
Yeah.
Give me your points, man.
3.
Yeah.
3.
All right, so we're good on that one. All right, so we'll do another. Guess that is it, Ranch. Back to the quiz. All right, so we have 6 minutes. I could go back to some more quiz at 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we break for 10 minutes. All right, I can get some more. Have 6 more minutes, and then when we return, we shall start chapter 2. Okay, this one is gonna create a havoc with everybody. All right. Check your understanding. Adapter cards and expansion slots. This version of a PCI expansion slot that used in laptops.
Mini PCI.
Mini PCI?
Yes, sir.
Or PCI-X? Oh, sorry. You say mini PCI?
Yes.
All right, let me put that in. I'm not supposed to say a word. This expansion slot has X1, X4, X8, and X16 slots. The X mean multiply. All right, which one is that? I know you guys might not remember it, but you read. So we're reading ahead, reading back.
PCIe.
PCIe. Okay. This laptop expansion slot has type 1, type 2, and type 3 form factors. Trust me, it's only 3.
AGP.
Which one?
AGP.
What? AGP?
Yes, sir, AGP.
Okay, all right, let's put AGP.
That's
This is
so
a card.
Yeah.
This is a card that adds additional expansion slot to a computer.
Riser.
This adapter sends a video signal to a computer so the signal can be recorded.
Video capture.
This adapter sends video signal to a computer so that
Video
the signal
adapter.
can be recorded.
Video adapter.
Okay. All right. Let's check and see who right from who wrong.
Oh my.
What?
So number 5 is supposed to be capture card.
For number 5,
Capture
a
card.
capture card.
All right. So let us correct what is wrong now. Number 3, this laptop expansion slot has type 1, type 2, type 3 form factors.
I made a PCX.
It's definitely not
PCIX.
PCI-X. All right, let us do number 5.
Capture
What do
card.
you say?
Capture card.
Card.
Video capture card. Let's check again. All right, so it goes back to the same one here.
Really?
All right, so A then.
Any PC.
Yes,
In the
because you
PCI.
know,
Yeah.
because you know, he said this version. He said this version because he looked at one and they said this version of PCI expansion slot that is used in laptops. So when you talk about laptops, you have to remember it's mini
Oh.
PCI.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Can you ask me, I'm sure if a PCI, it's like you want to show me out.
An AGP, that is accelerated graphics printing. AGP. All right. All right. So there we go. All right. So we can do another. Let us find one with memory. And do this one. Okay, so statement described from. It is a type of RAM, is a type of volatile memory. Data is from ultraviolet light. Data is programmed on it when it is manufactured. It can be programmed once.
Strong
Which one?
ultraviolet light.
Let's describe it. Okay. Anybody else?
Can be erased by volatile by
Violet light.
ultraviolet light. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody stay with that. We're gonna read that. You guys read that in a reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's put it there then. A user complains that their computer is running very slowly. What solution would help to speed it up?
Add more RAM.
More RAM.
And everybody say comfortable with that answer, right?
Yes.
All right. Which RAM from the list provides the fastest performance?
SRAM.
SRAM.
SRAM?
Yes, sir.
Static
So
RAM.
Static RAM.
static RAM. Okay.
Come on, I-
All right. You say so. Error correction code, ECC, memory can correct multiple bit errors. Is that true or false?
True.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Everybody agree?
True.
All right. Going with it. Which memory module can support both 32-bit and 64-bit transfers of data?
I remember that one that.
I think it's
Sodium.
dim, you know.
You said what?
Sodium. Last
Dim.
one.
So dim? Okay, you're sure? I mean, that's what you're saying? Everybody agree?
Yes, sir.
Well, I remember some neutral.
So dim?
So dim. We go with that for now.
Okay, all right. Let's check. There you go.
All right, see it there again.
So EEPROM can be erased when using a strong ultraviolet light. I'm testing out what I say. If I read it, somebody say yes, which means that person read. All right. The memory one was easy. Add more RAM. Which RAM from the list provides the fastest performance? And I guess everybody gets static RAM. Error correction code memory does not do multiple bit errors. Single. All right. And sodium, I was trying to get this guy here to say dim, but wasn't going to say dim, so I'm stick around
Keep
sodium. I
on,
don't know
chew
if he
me
was
off
sure,
again.
I was just guessing.
Hey, Sir
Keep
Turbine.
on, chew me off again.
I
Sir
don't know if he was
Turbine.
sure, I was just guessing, but he stick to his point, so that's okay.
Great.
All right, so you will see it here for number 4. ECC detect multiple bit errors, but it can only correct one. It only correct a single one. All right, and it tell you small online DIMM has 72 pin and 100 pin configured for support of 32-bit transfers, and it also has 144 pin and 200 pin for 204 and 204 pin configured for support 64-bit. I think I have where is it? You know, you guys know what a sodium look like?
No, I never see it before.
Okay, I'm gonna show you. It's what is in the laptop. That's the shape that is used in the laptop. Okay, just a moment. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. I'm gonna turn on my screen, my camera. Just give me a second. Start video. All right, so if you can you see what it looks like? I don't know if you're seeing me clearly. Can you
Yes.
see?
No,
No,
sir.
No, sir, no.
You need light.
still just seeing your screen.
Too much light? Okay. All right. You can see it now? No?
No, sir.
Still
Somewhat.
can't see it?
Not clear.
You only see in the shadow.
Can you see it now? Nope.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see it.
Still not seeing
Okay.
it? This is
That's a
what
small
it
green chip
looks
looking
like.
thing.
It's, yes, that's what it looks like. It goes into the laptop. All right. Slips into the laptop and goes down. So that's why the size does not change. It just comes with greater number of pins. Whether it is split or 64-bit. So that's what it looks like. All right. And this, for most persons who know what regular memory model look like, this is what it looks like. This is an old version. This is it's an old version. All right. This is what it looks like. If you can see. Okay, so we'll take a break. So we'll take, we're gone 5 minutes into our time. So we're gonna come back at 15 minutes after 7, and then we'll wrap up. We'll go through chapter 2. All right?
Okay,
There we go.
sir.
So take out water break, go to the restroom,
Okay.
and return. Oh my God. If we follow the acronym PASS, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep from side to side. We keep that in our head. We will know what to do when we're in situation and there's an electrical fire. But bear in mind what the demonstrator said. He said if the fire is out of control, don't attempt to try and use a fire extinguisher. Safety first. Get yourself to safety. All right? I don't think I need to tell the ladies that, right, ladies?
No.
Right. A fire, it's easier for you to say fire and go. If it's a small fire, now that you know how to use a fire extinguisher, you just follow the process, follow the steps, keep it in your mind. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. It's PASS. You won't forget it. And always aim at the base of the fire. You notice that small fire that that person was demonstrating? Now, if it is too big, I wouldn't be the one doing that. I would be running. All right, I'll probably be getting some. I mean, we are men, you know, most times we try to get a bucket of water, so we try to use it out of a house, blazing. Sometimes it work, and sometimes it just will never work. But that's how it is. All right. So let's look at this video, and this video is demonstration how to install the power supply.
Desktop power here.
No.
Got my anti-static wrist strap connected to it, so we're going to be good to go to get started. So I'm going to take this computer tower and we're going to place it on its face. Put it face side down. And by doing this, it's going to be this. Right now we've got nothing there. So this is where we're going to install our.
Hearing anything.
Sound gone.
We'll be able to take a look at the inside of the computer tower. Now, at this point in time, we have an empty computer tower.
So this computer tower, guys, this is where the computer, whether one-stop computer or computer depot. You buy one or you buy it online, wherever. This is what you're gonna get, just like this, empty. All right.
We have nothing installed at the moment. All we have are some USB and audio headers attached to the front of the case. If I put the case front side down, we can view these adapter card slots here, right above the power supply slot on the back. Our power supply unit, known as a PSU, that's what we're about to install. So let's chat about the PSU. Now, right now with this PSU, it's got so many watts. This is a 450 watt power supply. And on this PSU, it is currently set to 115 volts, the US standard. If you look closely at the PSU, we can actually take a look at more detail of it and click back for the PSU. But that's not for us at this moment. Now, for us, make sure you plan ahead and choose the correct power supply unit for your computer build, especially if your CPU choice is pull a lot of power. Now, step 2. We need to align the screw holes of our power supply with this power supply slot. So we have the power supply slot here and put it into play. And we can take a look at those screw holes that are about to line up and see if we can lock this in. Now my case is really cool because it actually has a locking mechanism. Go with power supply. My screw holes are aligned and it is currently locked into place. If you look closely, you'll see those screw holes are currently lined up, and we even get a closer view based off of my camera. There we go. So what we want to do now is lock those screws into place. So I'll take 4 of my power supply screws, and we get to put this thing in and be done. All 4 screws are installed. The power supply is not going anywhere. Hopefully you chose the correct wattage for your internal parts. Otherwise, you'll be switching this thing out in the very near future. Thanks for watching our power supply install.
Okay, so here we go on reassembling. Can anybody tell me what PSU stand for?
Power supply unit.
Okay, good. All right, so I know some of us might be familiar with the terms, but not everyone in the class is. So I have to make sure that I ask the question so that we are familiar with the terms and we know when a term is being used or abbreviation, we know what it means. All right, so check our understanding. All right, we're talking about the steps in installing the power supply. Number 1 step. What is the first thing we'll do? For number 1,
Open the computer case.
Open the computer case. Okay. Number 2.
And the screw holes.
Okay. And I guess number 3 will fit there. All right. Good. We're moving on. Oh my. All right. I guess because my session has timeout, I need to log in. All right. We'll continue using our PowerPoint slides. Okay, so we continue using our power supply. So the objective of this is chapter 2 is there, and we have done the power supply connection already. The next thing we're going to do is installing the motherboard. I'm going to log in the meantime. All right, because when we talk about general safety, okay. So I definitely need to log back in so that you guys can see the videos. Or I can share video. Just give me a moment, all right? Wow. Just give me a moment, class. Okay, videos. Oops. All right, we're going to do all of the motherboard connector, computer assembly. All right, so let's do it from do it from here. Okay, so opening the case, we're gonna do the video, but I'm not gonna be logging in. All right, I'm just gonna use videos that I have. All right. So we have done the power supply, and now we're gonna set the case and fans. So we have talked about the case. We're talking about the motherboard. The case we talked about in the early chapter. Because not all motherboards can work in some cases, not all cases you can put the motherboard in. We speak about the type of we're going to use. Also the case define the type of motherboard that we're going to use, the form factor. All right, size. Computer components, you need more room to keep the system cool. About putting in a more powerful CPU would need a bigger heat sink and probably a bigger fan, more powerful fan. So you're gonna need space. You will need a bigger case. All right, and the motherboard normally tends to be bigger because you wouldn't have a small motherboard cluttering everything. And you guys, most of these gentlemen here, they might have an idea what I'm talking about, because if you look at a gamer's computer, it's normally a super tower or a full tower, not a mid tower. It's not normally a regular size tower. It's bigger. Am I lying, guys? Or you can confirm that the gamer's computer is bigger. All right?
That's right.
And they talk about the power supply. The power supply rating has to be higher. It's going to be for higher wattage. All right, and the connection type to the motherboard sometimes different, sometimes not. It's basically the same with the 12 volt, as long as the wattage is there. You have some motherboard where you can use the more modular power supply, and but not all the time you have to. The appearance, there are many cases designed to choose from. All right, so we look at that in some of the videos coming along. Then we have the status display. Those are the LEDs that we'll see on the front of the computer, sometimes on the side, and depends on the model or the design of the case. Then you'll have the vents. The vents, how about that, guys? The vents. All cases have vents on the power supply, and some have vent in the back to draw air out of the system. If you look at every computer case, have vent at the back, and they have, most of them also have vent in the front to pull in cool air and to push out warm air out of the back. All right, just the power supply also has a vent to remove the hot air from the system. All right, so as it relates to case size, you have larger cases that require larger fans because smaller fans cannot create enough airflow. As I explained, where the more powerful the CPU is, the more components you have inside the case, the harder when the computer is going to be utilized for harder work, it's a more complex task where it's going to do more processing power is required of it, then you're going to find that the CPU is going to be utilized heavily most of the time, and then that will generate lots of heat. And so you will need fan, you need cooling inside of that computer. So most times you want a larger case, sizable case, so that you can get airflow in that system. Fan speed, larger fans can spin more slow than smaller fans, which reduces the noise. The thing about it is, you want to say then why you're going to get one fan that spins slow. But you have to remember that even though it's spinning slow, it's larger, so it's circulating more here. You understand? Smaller fans, you use a smaller fan and the CPU, based on, as I say again, the processing power of that computer or the CPU. All right. Number of components, multiple components that come to create additional heat, which requires more fan. Larger fans are faster fans. All right. Physical environment. All right. So a computer that is placed in an air-conditioned office right, will be kept cooler 99% of the time in comparison to a computer that is in an office that has no AC at all, even if there's a fan blowing. Because what happens is when a fan blowing, and the place is just open, you're still having a lot of hot air coming in, and the fan has to be working hard to push that, to cool that hot air that is coming in. But when you have an AC environment, the air inside that area is already cool and basically circulating cool air. All right, the number of mounting places. All right, so different cases have different number of mounting places for fans. They call it the chassis fans. You know, you might see the fans placed on different area of the case. We call them the chassis fans. When you look on the motherboard, you will see different connectors for chassis fans or case fans, they call it. All right. So, and then you have, so they will place those fans at strategic location on the case. All right. So that you can draw cool air into the case and also blow hot air out. So you'll find that the fan that is at the front of the computer, most times, 99% of the time, is a suction fan, and it is sucking in cool air from outside, and that air is circulated in the computer via additional case fan that is on the inside, and also the fan that is over the CPU. Now you will have a fan inside the power supply, and you'll also have another case fan that is at the back of the computer. Those two fans are blowing outward, and those fans, what they do is to blow hot air out. So then one at the front pulls in cool air, it is circulated inside the case to keep the inside the air there cool. The hot air is then pulled out at the back. All right, and that's how the setup of the fans in the case and the cooling environment for the computer. Factors to consider when choosing a power supply. All right, you have to think about the type of motherboard. All right, so you have different power supply connectors, and so you find that the motherboard can accept this particular connector, and it doesn't accept that connector is not compatible with it, can't fit onto it. And that has to do with the different form factors. All right, you talk about the required wattage. The wattage for each component, each computer component uses different amount of power. All right, and when you talk about power, you talk about watts. All right, if the wattage is not listed on the component, calculate it by multiplying its voltage and amperage. If the component requires different level of wattage, use a higher requirement. In other words, if the component that you're using, take for instance a video card, a video accelerator, or a video graphics card, one of those cards that's used, it has its own CPU or so forth that requires more power. What you can do is you are going to set the computer on a regular before you decide to put the additional card inside there. It is a 400 watt system that is set up, and you put a card inside there that uses additional 12 watt. What you want to do is ensure that that power supply now will have to be replaced with a 450 watt. You want to use a power supply that has more power than what is required. All right, you don't want to use the exact amount, and you don't want to use less than the amount. So if it's 420, you want to go 450 or 500. All right, and that's all it works. Type of motherboard. The power supply must be compatible with the motherboard. Oh, I mentioned that already, and require wattage. Number of components. Make sure the power supply provides enough wattage to support the number and types of component, plus another 25% at minimum. Well, that's, like I just explained. All right, so you must have at least 25% free power not being utilized. All right, type of case. Make sure power supply can be mounted in the desired case. All right, So whenever you're buying, all right, so the power supply that was demonstrated in the video earlier, it fits in that particular case, all right, because it comes with that case. But if you're going to buy a case and it comes without a power supply, you have to ensure that you check the power supply that you are buying to ensure that it can fit inside that case. Or the easiest thing to do when you buy that case, look on this the specification of that case to see which power supply, what form factor of power supply, which particular design then, all right, of power supply will fit inside that case. All right, so that's important. All right, so we're going to install the motherboard and CPU. You're going to watch those videos in a moment. So we install the power supply. We install the motherboard. All right, so let's look at some of this video here. Let me share this video. Just give me a second, class.
Hello everyone. Can you believe it? We're going to install the motherboard with the CPU, heatsink, and RAM into our computer case. Before we just place the motherboard in the computer case, call it a day.
Okay, there we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to start. All right, so here we go. So this is, we look at installing the power supply already. And now we're going to look at installing the motherboard, and then we're going to look at a video, which is installing the CPU. All right, so we have done the power supply, and we're going to do the motherboard, and we're going to move on to the CPU. So the first step is to align the motherboard in the correct direction. All right, then you locate the standoff. The standoffs are, you will see what it looks like in the video. Those are some, it's like a screw, but it basically is a spacer between the motherboard and the case, the frame of the case. All right, then you align the I/O plate, the input-output plate, to the back of the computer case. The I/O plate is where you have you plug in your mouse. It comes with the USB ports, the printer port, and the video port, and the audio and graphic port. Those are on the I/O plate. So align that to the opening that it's supposed to be. Then you lower the motherboard in place, and you install the screws into the standoff. All right, so let us look at the video.
Hello everyone. Can you believe it? We're going to install the motherboard with the CPU, heatsink, and RAM into our computer case. Before we just place the motherboard in the computer case, call it a day, we first need to install the standoffs into our computer case. These standoffs will be used to secure the motherboard in place within the computer case. Some computer cases will have built-in standoffs, like mine, for example. Others, you'll have to take each standoff and install it yourself. These standoffs are commonly small, and you'll screw it in using the adapter that comes with the standoffs. In order to locate the standoff locations, it is best to take your motherboard and practice placing it into your computer case. Step 1 is to align the motherboard in the correct direction by having our adapter ports facing out the back of the computer case.
So the adapter ports are what we call the I/O ports, all right? So there they are. Okay.
The motherboard is resting in the case. Step 2 is to locate the exact standoffs that are needed by looking at the screw hole locations. You take a close look at it, shift the motherboard, and we'll be able to find the exact screw hole locations that'll be needed. Step 3 is to remove the motherboard and then screw in the standoffs at the correct locations. Since my computer case does not require this step, we're going to continue on. Assuming you've installed your standoffs, step 4 is to take our I/O plate, input-output adapter plate, and align it on the back of our computer case. This will provide adequate dust and airflow for our computer case. Let's position the I/O adapter plate with the writing ports in the correct direction. If you install the I/O adapter plate upside down, the motherboard won't be able to fit correctly. So make sure that it's correct. As you put the plate into place, give it a push in each corner and along the edges, and you'll hear it snap into place. Take your time on this step, as some adapter plates are plastic, while others are metal. They are possible to bend and or break. Now that the plate is installed, put the computer case back on its side for step 5, lowering the motherboard to place. Let's finish installing the motherboard. The key of installing the motherboard is to put it into the case at the correct angle. As you place it in, you need to align the board to the motherboard with the slots of the I/O plate. If I pick up the case, we should be able to see it resting nicely. At this time, we can use our screwdriver for step 6, installing the screws into the motherboard standoffs. One by one, we will install the motherboard screws. Make sure not to install the screws too tight, as you don't want to crack the motherboard through excessive force. Don't worry about the screws being not overly tightened, as you have a good amount of screws to keep this motherboard in place. If you choose to upgrade your CPU or heatsink in the future, some gaming and high-performance heatsinks actually require you remove the motherboard and install special plates for that. Let's get started installing those screws. Now that all the screws are tightened, we are good to finish our build and continue on to the next video. Who knows? You might be removing your motherboard and installing it again in the future. Get your practice with us here for installing a motherboard into a computer case.
All right, class. So did anybody have any question on that video? Anything you need to talk about that you didn't understand? Why was it done this particular way?
That's quite clear to me still.
Okay, all right. One thing I need to let you guys know is that we normally install the CPU onto the motherboard before it is placed into the case. All right, so if you notice the CPU was onto the motherboard, so I'm going to go through the CPU installation right now. All right, so give me just a moment. Let me start that video. Where is it? This one here.
We're going to install a
All right, so let us share this video. Okay, so automatic device is good. I was looking for that all along. All right, can you see my screen? Class, can you see it?
Yes.
Are you seeing it now? Okay, so installing the CPU, first we want to ensure, remember everything that we are doing in an environment, we're taking all the precautions that are necessary to ensure that our components, all the components that we are using, remain functional after we complete the installation. So we have to ensure we have on our anti-static wristband and ensure that these components are placed on the anti-static mat. All right. While they are in storage, you can store them in the anti-static bag. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do now, we take the motherboard and we're going to place the motherboard onto our anti-static mat. And then we are going to take the CPU and we are going to install it into the motherboard. Once we complete that, then we will install the motherboard into the computer. So we have looked at the motherboard installation and we know we're going to do the CPU installation. All right. Any questions at all? I want you guys to pay attention to the video. Any questions you have, I have no problem trying to answer and give you the best answer that I can. So questions are allowed and recommended.
We're going to install a CPU, Central Processing Unit, into our motherboard. Here's an exercise that is not only done in the classroom. We're going to take a CPU, like this chip here, and we're going to install it into our motherboard slot. Now, what we must do is orient the CPU. Step 1 is locating 1. Pin 1 is usually what indicates how the CPU orientation should work. We have a triangle, which we'll be able to see right here. Let me zoom in. And this triangle is what's going to inform us of the alignment of pin 1. Now, if we go to our motherboard and we open up our motherboard slot, if we look closely, what we'll be able to see here as well is that same triangle marking. The triangle marking is right here, which shows us the orientation for our CPU. Now, our CPU also has a keyed slot on it. And on the CPU on the motherboard housing, you'll also be able to see here that we're dropping the CPU and there's keyed slots to ensure that it's correctly aligned. Now that we know how it should be aligned, step 2 is to safely lower the CPU into the CPU slot.
That's a land grid array CPU.
Yes, it is.
For step 3, we can lower the CPU.
Yes, it is. I was about to ask the question, what type of CPU is that? Would it be PGA or LGA? But yes, it is LGA, land grid array. And the difference is if it is pin grid array, all right, then you will see the pins will be on the CPU. All right, you see some pins on it. And you drop those pins into the hole that will be in the socket of the motherboard. But this is a land grid, so it's flat. All right.
All right.
CPU housing and lock the lever into place to hold our CPU firmly in place.
And one more thing to note is that the pin grid array is a little bit more difficult, not much, to install. So you have to ensure that it is aligned pin for pin in each hole. As the pin may break, it can bend, and when I try to straighten it, it will break. Then you will lose a good CPU. And you know, CPUs are not very cheap. All right, so that's what you need to note.
For step 4, it is important that we take some thermal paste and we're going to place a pea-sized drop carefully on the top center of our CPU. This thermal paste will help the distribution of heat from the CPU to the heatsink that we will install next. Now, to keep this CPU cool and prevent it from overheating, we are going to install a heatsink for step 5. These commonly have a fan attached to them, but not all of them do. These fins we see here are going to absorb the heat from the CPU and have slots for airflow to move in between. The fan on top of the heatsink will help draw the heat away and cool the fins. This will allow them to absorb more heat from the CPU. As you attempt to place the heatsink on the motherboard, it may take 1 to 2 attempts to position it correctly over the screws. that are going to surround our CPU. The final step, step 6, is to screw down.
I'm sorry, class, take note. You cannot complete this installation without the thermal paste. All right, so the thermal paste is not optional. It is critical. All right, you must have thermal paste. The truth is, when you're buying CPU, sometimes you get the thermal paste as a part of the package, sometimes you don't. So you ensure that you have thermal paste. It all, as it says, it helps to dissipate the heat, remove the heat from the CPU onto the heat sink, but it also holds, it's a paste, it's a glue. It also holds the heat sink onto the CPU so that there is no space between the CPU and the heat sink. If there's a space between the heat sink and the CPU, you will find that the heat will not evenly dissipate to the heat sink and will eventually cause the CPU to be overheated, and that can cause damage. All right, then now you understand the importance or critical it is to have thermal paste. All right, the thermal paste is important to keep the CPU and the heatsink attached together perfectly. All right, let's go.
All right. After positioning the heatsink correctly so that it aligns with the heatsink screws on the motherboard, we will screw in the 4 screws in a specific order. It is best to screw one corner first and then go to the opposite corner diagonally from it. This will help ensure we have a flush connection between the CPU and thermal base and the heatsink. As I mentioned, we'll go diagonally across to the other corner. Now we can continue on the last 2 screws. Now that all 4 screws are locked in, the heatsink will not be able to move or shift at all. Having a tight and flush fitting will also allow the CPU to better stay cool. Thanks for watching our CPU install.
Cool. All right, so now we understand that we see how we get these components installed in our computer case. All right, so if you notice, you install the CPU onto the motherboard and then the motherboard into the computer. All right, so just keep in mind, like I said before, the thermal paste is critical. All right, so next up, we're going to install the memory into the computer. All right, and on the motherboard, we will have RAM slots, RAM or memory slots. So I will use the word RAM or memory interchangeably. When I say memory, I'm speaking to the RAM, not ROM. All right, so we're going to look at the video and we will see how we do this installation. Just give me a quick moment. Let me open this video. All right, can you see my screen, guys? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Yes.
Yes,
Not
sir.
yet.
All right.
Okay, yes.
All right, let's go through this video quickly.
Hello everyone. At this point in time, we have our power supply installed in our case. We also have our heatsink installed on top of our CPU, which is locked into the motherboard. Now, before we move this entire setup into our computer case, we will install the RAM modules. These are the RAM modules. It's much easier to install these now than after we have this entire setup screwed into the case. On our motherboard, we have 2 slots to add RAM. Take note of where the notches are on the RAM slots on our motherboard. Right here and right here. These notches will line up with the notches on our RAM. Step 1 is to open the lever.
Did you see the notches, guys? Did you see the notch?
Yeah, on each side.
Yes.
Okay, here it is. Look at my mouse. This is one. And see? That's it. That's the notch right there. Okay, and these are the locks. This white one, that white one, a white one. All right. All right, let's continue.
Up with the notches on our RAM. Step 1 is to open the levers on the RAM slots of the motherboard. Open as far as they will go and click into place. This should require almost no force. Step 2 is we're going to line up the RAM module in the correct direction for the slot and that notch. Step 3, we're going to slowly lower the RAM module into the slot. Step 4, now use your thumbs to press down on both sides of the RAM module, and you feel the RAM module will be locked in by the 2 lever arms on the motherboard. Next, we take the second RAM module. We'll verify the alignment again, based on the notches on the motherboard RAM slot. We'll press the RAM module down vertically using both of our thumbs again. Be able to push downward using your thumb on the left and on the right. As it clicks in, now the RAM modules are installed. This is exciting. Proceed onward in the course. We're almost ready to put this motherboard into the computer case.
That look relatively easy though. So you can install all of the components, then put in the motherboard inside of the case.
All right, so not all the components, but some of the components. And then, so the memory, the processor definitely can be installed into the motherboard. And then you install the motherboard into the computer. All right?
Okay.
All right, so now we have looked at this video already. I'm going to bring it to you again, about installing the motherboard, just as a refresher, so that you guys can see what it looks like or remind yourself. All right, so just a moment. All right, let's start this video. Share video, automatically optimize. Okay, good. That was my problem. There you go. You should hear the sound a lot better now. All right, so it's 4 minutes, but we'll use it just as a refresher, all right?
Hello everyone, can you believe it? We're going to install the motherboard with the CPU, heatsink, and RAM into our computer case. Before we just place the motherboard into the computer case and call it a day, we first need to install the standoffs into our computer case. These standoffs will be used to secure the motherboard in place within the computer case. Some computer cases will have built-in standoffs, like mine for example. Others, you'll have to take a standoff and install it yourself. These standoffs are commonly small, and you'll screw it in using an adapter that comes with the standoffs. In order to locate the standoff locations, it is best to take your motherboard and practice placing it into your computer case. Step 1 is to align the motherboard in the correct direction by having our adapter ports facing out of the back of the computer case. So we'll take our motherboard, motherboard is resting in the case. Step 2 is to locate the exact standoffs that are needed by looking at the screw hole locations. If you take a close look at it, you can shift the motherboard, and it will be able to find the exact screw hole locations that'll be needed. Step 3 is to remove the motherboard, and then screw in the standoffs at the correct locations. Since my computer case does not require this step, we're going to continue on. Assuming you've installed your standoffs, step 4 is to take our I/O plate, input-output adapter plate, and align it on the back of our computer case. This will provide adequate dust and airflow for our computer case. Let's position the I/O adapter plate with the writing and ports in the correct direction. If you install the I/O adapter plate upside down, the motherboard won't be able to fit correctly. So make sure that it's correct. As you put the plate into place, give it a push in each corner and along the edges, and you'll hear it snap into place. Take your time on this step, as some adapter plates are plastic, while others are metal. They are possible to bend and or break. Now that the plate is installed, put the computer case back on its side for step 5, lowering the motherboard into place. That's finished installing the motherboard. The key of installing the motherboard is to put it into the case at the correct angle. As we place it in, we need to align the I/O ports of the motherboard with the slots of the I/O plate. If I pick up the case, we should be able to see it resting nicely.
Are you seeing the video, class?
Yes.
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 At this time, we use our screwdriver for step 6, installing the screws into the motherboard standoffs. One by one, we will install the motherboard screws. Make sure not to install the screws too tight, as you don't want to crack the motherboard through excessive force. Don't worry about the screws being not overly tightened, as you have a good amount of screws to keep this motherboard in place. If you choose to upgrade your CPU or heatsink in the future, some gaming and high-performance heatsinks actually require you remove the motherboard and install special plates to the back. Let's get started installing those screws. Now that all the screws are tightened, we are good to finish our build and continue on to the next video. Who knows? You might be removing your motherboard and installing it again in the future. Get your practice with us here for installing a motherboard into a computer case.
Okay, guys, so can you tell me what 4 components were placed in the case, were installed in the case this evening? What 4 components you have installed so far? Or let's say it's 5 components, 6 components you have installed so far.
CPU, the RAM, heatsink,
Motherboard.
CPU, the RAM,
motherboard. Somebody said heatsink, and there is one other component that with
PSU.
ignoring. Which one? The PSU? Yes. So we install the PSU, we install the RAM, CPU, heatsink and fan, and the motherboard, and RAM. Okay? And we install them in a very short time. Okay, install the motherboard. And when selecting a replacement, all right, one other thing we need to know is that in computer, oftentimes as a technician, you may be called upon to diagnose and or troubleshoot an issue. And it could be that when you troubleshoot, diagnose, you concluded that the motherboard is faulty. and the motherboard needs to be replaced. All right, and it could be that you diagnose that the CPU is faulty, and if the CPU is faulty, maybe you will have to purchase a replacement CPU, and the possibility will exist where that CPU is not on the market anymore. And if that CPU is not on the market anymore, maybe because the computer is old, you want to buy, you have to now do we call it a component upgrade. You'll have to upgrade the CPU, get a new one, which means that you'll have to get a new motherboard that will be compatible with the CPU. All right. And then you'll have to buy heatsink and fan. And not only that, now you'll have to buy RAM, memory. Because chances are, if that motherboard is so old that you can't get a replacement part for it, you won't be able to get memory modules for it also. So when you are upgrading a computer, you normally think of these three things. These three things you must think of. Three components. All right? The memory, you think of CPU, memory, and motherboard. Okay? And sometimes you have to change the hard drive because it could be that you are upgrading from a very old mother system that uses the IDE hard drives, and now the motherboard that is available on the market is a SATA connector, and the one that you have will not work. That is a one-off situation. All right? But in current times, you will encounter SATA. So it's just a 10% chance that you will end up changing hard drive, but most times you will be changing the motherboard, the memory, and the CPU. All right? You can change the hard drive, upgrade the hard drive to a bigger one or a faster one, maybe because they are going to put on a new operating system, and based on maybe the usage of the computer has now changed, and you need to have more storage and a faster throughput. So you want to get a faster hard drive. All right, so that is just information for you to know. But so if you get to the point where you have to change your motherboard, you're going to have to select the motherboard. So when selecting a replacement motherboard, you have to make sure that it supports and accommodate these things that I was speaking of. Your CPU, your RAM, your video adapter, and other adapter cards. I did not mention video adapter and other adapter cards because most of the motherboard that are on the market now will already have an integrated video card on it. All right. So you talk about also the socket and chipset on the motherboard are compatible with the CPU that you have. But if you're buying a CPU, you have to ensure that it's compatible with the motherboard. If it is compatible with the motherboard, then you don't have to too much think about the chipset. All right. The existing heatsink and fan may not work, so you have to buy a new one. All right. And I mentioned that earlier. They must match the existing adapter cards and allow for a new card. That's what you're talking about, the expansion slots. No, not all motherboard comes with multiple expansion slots, especially in nowadays. So the cheaper the motherboard, the less expansion slot comes. Let me point. Look at my mouse. This is my mouse here, top right-hand corner, where I'm pointing at the blue. This is an expansion slot. And this one here, this blue, is an expansion slot also. The white one is an expansion slot also. And this blue one here is also an expansion slot. All right? So you'll find not many motherboards come with as much expansion, so especially nowadays. All right? The newer motherboards, the newer, cheaper motherboards come with one expansion slot. And the reason for that is that motherboard comes integrated with the network card, NIC network interface card already built onto the motherboard. It comes with the USB ports already built onto the motherboard. It comes with the video card already built onto the motherboard. It comes with the sound card already built onto the motherboard. and it comes with almost everything built onto the motherboard. So you don't really need multiple expansion slots in some of these motherboards. So you will say when you're building a not so we call it not so heavy duty computer like a regular desktop for a secretary or just regular workstation, then you can buy one of those motherboards to put in the computer. It doesn't come with many, it doesn't come more than one expansion slot. Some of them two, but most times one. All right. So the existing power supply connectors may not work on that motherboard that you're buying. So chances are you might have to buy a new motherboard. All right, because the motherboard that you buy, it could be that it is newer and it uses a newer processor that requires more power, and so power means wattage. So it could be that the older power supply that was there does not have enough power to carry through this CPU and motherboard and the additional components. So you have to buy a different power supply. All right, and new motherboards must fit into the computer case. So look into all these factors. You will recognize or realize that it is critically important when you are diagnosing and making decisions. You have to take into consideration all these points right here. All right. So if you're going to say, if you are a technician that goes to look at someone's computer, you're going to make a final decision to replace the motherboard, take into consideration, can this motherboard integrate or work well with the current components that are already there? If it can, because it is a new system, well, good for you. But if you have to know if it can't, then you need to know what components will need replacement also. Any question on that, class? A question? All right.
Not right now.
Okay. All right, so you select the CPU and CPU cooling. All right, so normally when you're buying a CPU, right, you want to also buy the correct or the most appropriate, the correct heat sink and fan. So the cooling system, it must be cooling better than expected. All right, you don't want anything undercooling your CPU, because that CPU you might spend 40 grand for it, and in 2 days time it just overheat and burn up. That 40 grand gone. All right, because it's not insured, so you won't get it back just like that. All right, so ensure you get the right cooling for it. Big heat sink and powerful fans to keep your CPU cool and your system cool. All right, so we talk about the Intel, the sockets then, because the motherboard, the two most prominent motherboard manufacturers, processor or CPU manufacturers are Intel and AMD. All right, those are the two most prominent. All right, so Intel, they make Pentium. All right, and AMD, they make the AMD models. All right, so Intel make Pentium and they make the Intel we call it CPU, and they have different model, different grade. They have the i3, the i5, the i7, and you have different generation of each. You have the Pentium Gold and so forth. Those are made from Intel, and the Intel architecture is LGA. All right, Intel, once you buy an Intel motherboard, Intel processor, you know that it is LGA, land grid array. All right, so you have the older socket, which is the 775, and we have the 1155, 1156, 1150. Those are currently on the market. We have 1366 and we have the 2011. Those are more server grade. The 2011 and 1360 are more server grade motherboards. All right, and CPU, should say. All right, so you have the AMD socket. All right, and those are PGA, pin grid array. So you can then tell which manufacturer CPU you are looking at by the socket architecture. All right, whether it is PGA or LGA. All right, so the AMD, we have the AM3 plus the FM, and the FM modules. All right, they come, as I said, the FM come in different generation. All right, so the factors to consider: socket type. All right, the heatsink or fan type must match the socket type of the motherboard. So first of all, whatever the motherboard you buy, because when you are building your computer, the first thing, this is my way of doing it. All right, the first thing I do is think of what is the usage of the computer, what amount of processing power. All right, then I decide which processor that I want to use, whether I want to use an AMD or an Intel processor. When I decide which manufacturer I'm going to use, then I decide what model of the CPU that I'm going to use. And then I will do my reading to try and find out what each model offers, what amount of threading, how many cores, the speed, the memory, the cache memory, all those stuff are critically important for the application that you're going to use it for. All right, when you have decided, then you know what motherboard you're going to buy, because you're going to then buy a motherboard that is compatible with that CPU. Okay, and then you buy the memory that is compatible. All right, so the heatsink and or fan must not interfere with any components attached to the motherboard. All right, so you mustn't have the wire they drop in at the heatsink fan and the fan and cut the wire and kind of stuff. So the heatsink or fan must fit within the case. So after we decide the motherboard that I'm going to buy, then I have to decide what size case I'm going to buy. Because again, like I mentioned, when you are thinking of high processing power, you're talking about heat generating. So you have to think of cooling, and then you think of cooling, you want to think of space. Because remember, earlier I said, the more space you have, the more airflow you will have. All right? And so you can't buy one small case now to drop up everything in there where you can't even fit nothing in there, and the wire them are crisscross and the clutch and so on. Soon after that, it ever kill that one or something, one damage inside there. So once you buy the motherboard, you look at the motherboard, you look at the size motherboard you buy, then you know. And worse, if you're putting in expand adapter cards, then you know that you're going to need a bigger case. So you want a sizable case, and then you need to buy the processor with the amount of power or wattage that you require for that. All right, then putting that all together, you know the physical environment that you're going to put the computer in. Is it going to be in an air-conditioned building where the office is always closed and always cold? Or are you going to put it is it going to be on a construction site where it's going to be hot and dusty? Then you're going to have to think, you need to ensure you have enough cooling, enough chassis fan or case fan to pull in cool air, push out hot air, and to blow away fan and soak dust and those stuff. All right? So those are the things that you will think of when you are selecting a CPU. And we talk about the motherboard already and so forth. When you're selecting the RAM, all right, so you have different kind of RAM. All right, so like I mentioned, that the RAM is like a highway, it's like a road. All right, a small little road like St. James Street will always jam up. It's a small giga RAM. All right, everything jam up and slow. But when you think about, all right, so when you think about highway, north-south highway, we have 2 lanes over this and it's fast all the time, and 2 lanes over this and it's fast most of the time, same way. Then you're going to talk about probably 4 gig, not 4 gig, 8 gig RAM. You understand? More space, more speed, things move up. You move from one point to the next quicker. All right, so new RAM may be needed when application locks up or the computer displays frequent error messages, give it a blue screen of death and those stuff. All right, to determine if the problem is RAM, execute the RAM test. Class, I seem like I'm going over time, but let me just finish with the RAM, all right? Are you there?
All right, yes, right here.
All right. So new RAM may be needed when an application locks up or the computer displays frequent error messages. To determine if the problem is the RAM, execute the RAM test in the BIOS. All right, and we're going to talk about BIOS as we move further into the class, into the course. The speed of the new RAM must be supported by the chipset. So again, when you're buying the RAM, when you buy a motherboard, after you buy a processor and you buy a motherboard, you need to know that the RAM that you are buying must be compatible with the motherboard. All right, so the speed of that RAM, you can't just go and say, I'm going to buy one fast RAM and come put it in the mother, it never work. You have to make sure it's compatible. All right, memory may also be categorized as unbuffered or buffered. Unbuffered memory, this is a regular memory for computers. This computer reads data directly from the memory banks, making it faster than buffered memory. All right, so the regular memory that we use is unbuffered memory. All right, so if you think about it, let me explain the buffering. Is when the information comes and it kind of store it up temporarily and then release it. Like when you're watching video and the connection is slow. So when you're watching a movie or streaming a movie and the bandwidth is not too much, the connection is slow, you will see it saying buffering. So what it's doing is collecting as much data as it can collect, and then it's going to play it. All right? Because it does not have enough bandwidth to play straight along. So it collects as much as it can and then play it. All right? Unbuffered memory is faster. You don't need to collect nothing after, it just gives you information. The buffered memory, specialized memory for servers and high-end workstation that use a large amount of RAM. These have control chip built into the module that assign memory controller and managing large quantities of RAM. So what, now that I say buffered memory, take stuff and then, these memory are more expensive, right? Because it allows for space to store stuff and then push it out. And these memory are used for specialized services like it says servers and high-end workstation and so forth. All right, because and these kind of memory, it as it says, as a built-in module that assists the memory controller in managing large quantities of RAM, because the server will be requiring a whole lot of memory space. All right, because probably 50 somebody is requesting information or something, data from that server. And so what it does, it needs to have that buffer. You understand? Where you can collect all this information and then push it out. All right?
All right.
All right. So we install the motherboard, we install the CPU, heatsink fan, assembly RAM, and you will learn to install. So we have done all of that. All right. So we will leave this portion. We are halfway through this. We are at 50%, exactly 50% of chapter 2. And the next class will definitely, today is what, Tuesday? The next class will definitely finish chapter 2 and move into chapter 3. All right? And I'm going to send some assignments. I'm going to send some assignments in the WhatsApp group this evening. I'm going to send links to the videos, and you guys can go over the videos. I'm going to send PowerPoint, and you can read. You can also review the information on MetaCAD and do the assignments. And I need those assignments are for not next class, for Tuesday. As a matter of fact, no. I want those assignments over the weekend. I'm going to finish chapter 2 But on Thursday, and then we are going to have chapter 1 exam. And should I be hard to you because I give you an assignment? I normally try to finish my exam. I'm going to do chapter 1 exam for this weekend. All right? I'm not going to give you chapter 2. So you're going to get the assignment and you're going to do chapter 1 exam for this weekend. All right? So today is Tuesday and I'm just advising you that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until midnight, chapter 1 exam will be open and it must be completed before midnight Sunday. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. No more questions? If there are no questions and we are good to go, we'll see each other on Thursday. And I hope you guys learn something.
1 minute. When should the
Thanks for listening.
assignment be turned in?
The assignment must be turned in before Sunday, 12 midnight.
Okay.
So you have the exam to be done and the assignment to be turned in before Sunday midnight, so I can go through those assignments on Monday.
All right.
All right?
Okay.
All right, so I'll send you some information after class. All right?
Okay.
Thank you for your time and thanks for viewing. All right.
Thank you too.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, guys.
All right.